Hello, I'm O.S. Hawkins, and I want to welcome you to this film series on the Nehemiah Code. It's never too late for a new beginning. You know, I've noticed in life that at some time or another, that's what all of us are going to have to be interested in, and that is a new beginning. Whether we're rebuilding our self-confidence, rebuilding our home, rebuilding our church, rebuilding after an integrity crisis, whatever it may be, it's never too late for a new beginning. We're here at this beautiful Mission Espada in San Antonio, Texas. These walls have been here over 300 years, built by those Spanish explorers so long ago. But you know, there's something very interesting about them. They had to get started right in building these walls. They didn't just come out here and begin to put one stone upon another. First, they had to clear the ground, remove the debris, and build a solid foundation that would enable those stones to stand for these centuries. You know, getting started right is vitally important. Let's talk about that because it's never too late for a new beginning. You know, rebuilding is a subject that touches everyone. There are people who are trying to rebuild their lives after divorce. Others are trying to rebuild their lives after perhaps the death of a spouse. Still others are rebuilding their lives after some setback. Churches are trying to revitalize and rebuild. Many of you have businesses that need a recharge, that need rebuilding themselves. You know, there's no one who's ever been a greater role model as a rebuilder than Nehemiah. You know, Nehemiah was an interesting person. He was not a priest. He was not a preacher. He was a layman, just like most of us watching this right now. He had a civil service job, actually, in the court of King Artaxerxes in Persia, and he had retirement benefits. He had all of those things stacked up with him, and yet he left all of it, took a risk to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild those broken walls. After the death of King Solomon, the kingdom of Israel divided into a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. The northern kingdom in 722 BC was taken away into Assyrian captivity and actually never returned. The southern kingdom was left in Judah with its capital in Jerusalem and its temple there. It was taken away into Babylonian captivity in 586 when Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian legions surrounded the city of Jerusalem, eventually destroyed it, broke down its walls, burned its gates, took away its people captive, and only left a remnant there. They took away the brightest minds in Israel back to Babylon to train them in the way of the Babylonians so they could send them back to rule their conquered lands. You might remember Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego were some of those people. They came back, and later the Persians broke the Babylonian supremacy. And under Artaxerxes, a remnant of those captive Jews were allowed to go back to Jerusalem and begin the rebuilding process under Ezra and others. They went back, and the task was so enormous, the debris was piled so high that after a few days of seeking to rebuild, they lost all hope and gave up. Years passed, and Nehemiah, who had a job in the court of the king, heard a report from Jerusalem that the walls were broken still, the gates were burned, and worse, the people were a reproach to God. And Nehemiah went back to Jerusalem to be the agent of rebuilding, to recruit those workers, to rebuild the city of Jerusalem. And miracle of miracles, he did it in 52 days. And the secret to the rebuilding process for Nehemiah and for you and for me is the ability to get started right. You know, in anything in life, that's where we have our most difficult time, and that is in get starting right. I play golf. The most important shot on a par 4 is that tee shot. If you just dribble the ball off the tee or hook it into the woods, you have a difficult time ever getting on the green in 2. But if you make that first shot right down the fairway, where you're positioned to get on the green, you're well off. Most of us have tried to go on a diet, and the hardest part is just getting started. Or how about an exercise program? Many of us right now, I'm sure, need to be in an exercise program, and the basic reason we're not is that we just don't know how to get started. Well, if you want to rebuild your life, the most important principle is to get started right. And that's what Nehemiah shows us in the first chapter of his book, because he lays out some principles that will enable you and will enable me to get started right in our own personal rebuilding process.